Some wounds don't bleed. They teach. Kola was just a poor boy standing at the gate of a powerful company, holding his mother's hope in a small folder. That morning they didn't just reject her application. They mocked her. They laughed at her struggle. They treated her like she didn't belong in a world of suits and glass doors. But what they didn't know was this. Pain can build a person. Years later, that same company announces a new CEO. The boardroom is full. The staff are smiling. Then the door opens. And the boy they once looked down on walks in. Calm, successful, untouchable. Not to destroy them, but to show them what karma, growth, and success truly look like. Before we continue, if you're new here, please subscribe to this channel and click the like button on this video. The sun rose like a tired lantern over Ekan City, throwing pale gold across the roads and the faces of people who had been awake since the dark. At the edge of the city stood a building that looked like it had never known hunger. Bamideel Group headquarters. Glass walls. Stainless steel gates. Security guards with polished boots. Cars that hummed quietly as they passed, like they didn't want to disturb the air. And outside those gates, like a shadow the building refused to acknowledge, stood a woman with a boy beside her. The woman's name was Amina Sonni. The boy's name was Kola. Kola was 8 years old, thin in the way children become thin when food is not always certain. His shirt was neat but faded, as if it had been washed too many times with too little soap. He held a small plastic folder to his chest with both arms, the way you hold something precious in a crowd that doesn't care. Inside the folder were his mother's papers. A certificate from a tailoring apprenticeship. A recommendation letter from a neighborhood women's group. A list of the jobs she had done. Small things, honest things, like stitching uniforms and repairing torn clothes for schoolchildren. She had come for a job. Not a big one. Just a job. Amina looked at the gates and swallowed. "Kola," she said softly, "stand close." "I am close," he whispered, pressing against her side. Amina's eyes drifted to the guards. They were laughing at something on a phone. One of them, tall, with a belly that sat proudly under his uniform, lifted his hand without even looking at her. "Madam," he called, voice full of boredom. "What do you want?" Amina stepped forward carefully, as if her words might break if she moved too fast. "Good morning, sir. I came to see Human Resources. I was told there may be a vacancy." The guard cut her off with a short laugh. "HR. Here. Madam, do you know where you are?" "I know," she said. "Please. I only want to submit my application." The guard finally looked at her properly. His eyes swept over her simple wrapper, her worn sandals, the boy beside her. His mouth twisted into something between pity and mockery. "Madam, go and submit it where?" "Inside there." He pointed his thumb behind him, toward the building. "This place doesn't take people like you." Amina's fingers tightened around the folder. "People like me." The guard shrugged. "People that look like they came to beg. This is a corporate environment." Kola's cheeks burned. He didn't like the way the guard's eyes rested on his mother, like she was a problem that needed to be moved away. Amina forced a smile. "Sir, I'm not begging. I'm qualified." "Qualified." The guard laughed louder, and now the other guard joined in, like laughter was a uniform too. A small crowd gathered, staff arriving early, heels clicking, badges swinging. A woman in a crisp suit paused, stared at Amina like she was a stain on the morning, and said, "Some people have no shame." Kola felt something twist in his chest. Shame wasn't supposed to be something you could feel like a hand, but he felt it anyway, pressing down, squeezing air out of him. Amina's voice shook, not with weakness, but with the effort of trying to remain respectful in a place that offered no respect back. "Please, I just need 5 minutes. Let me talk to someone." The tall guard made a show of leaning closer, lowering his voice as if he was offering advice. "Madam, listen. Don't embarrass yourself. The HR people don't talk to people at the gate." Amina's eyes glistened, but she blinked it away fast, like she refused to let the tears enter a place that didn't deserve them. Kola tugged her wrapper gently. "Mama, it's okay." But it wasn't okay. Amina had been strong for too long. Kola's father had died when Kola was 3. An accident that left no inheritance, only condolences that disappeared after the burial. Since then, Amina had been mother and father, roof and wall, prayer and plan. And now she stood here, holding her dignity in a folder, while strangers shredded it with smiles. A man stepped out from the lobby, surrounded by assistants. He looked important, hairline sharp, tie perfect, face like carved stone. Someone whispered, "That's Mr. Tade Akinwumi, the director." Amina straightened like a soldier. She stepped forward and called, "Sir, please." "Good morning, sir." The man glanced at her the way you glance at a roadside billboard, briefly, without curiosity. "What's this?" he asked the guard, annoyed. "Just someone disturbing the entrance," the guard said quickly. "We're handling it." Amina moved closer, voice urgent. "Sir, I'm Amina Sonni. Can work. I can sew staff uniforms, curtains, anything. Please just give me a chance." Mr. Akinwumi's eyes fell on Kola. He looked the boy up and down. Then he spoke quietly, but the quiet was sharper than shouting. "This is not a charity," he said. "Tell her to leave." Amina froze. For a second, it felt as if the whole street stopped breathing. Kola watched his mother's face. How it tried to remain composed, how it cracked at the edges anyway. The guard stepped forward, waving his hand. "You heard him. Leave." Amina didn't move. Not because she was stubborn. Because she was trying to swallow something too bitter. Kola leaned close and whispered, "Mama, let's go." Amina's chin trembled. Then she took Kola's hand and turned away from the gate. Behind them, laughter rose again, soft and careless. One voice said, "Imagine coming here like that." Another said, "That boy will grow up and still be at the gate. Watch." Kola didn't look back. But the words followed him like smoke. As they walked away, Amina squeezed his hand too tightly, then loosened her grip, ashamed of her own desperation. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Kola looked up. "Why are you sorry?" Amina's lips pressed together. Her eyes were far away. "Because," she said, voice breaking into honesty, "sometimes the world is cruel to people who are already tired." Kola didn't know how to answer that. So he answered with the only thing he could control. "I'll make it better," he promised. Amina stopped walking. She stared at him, like she didn't know whether to believe a child's promise. Kola's voice didn't shake. "I'll grow," he said. "I'll be big. I'll be important. And nobody will talk to you like that again." Amina's eyes filled, and this time she didn't stop the tears. She knelt right there on the pavement and held him so tightly the city could have disappeared. "My son," she whispered into his hair, "don't let anger spoil you." Kola's face pressed into her shoulder. "I won't spoil," he said. "But I won't forget." And somewhere behind that glass building, inside the air-conditioned halls of Bamadil Group, nobody noticed the promise being born on the street. But the universe noticed. Life after that day did not become easier. If anything, it became more honest. Amina stopped going to places where she had to beg for dignity. She took sewing work from neighborhoods, churches, and schools. She repaired what people threw away. She turned old fabric into new clothes. She taught Kola how to thread needles and how to sit quietly when adults were tired. Some evenings, their dinner was small. Some nights, the rain knocked on their roof like a landlord collecting debt. But Amina carried herself like someone who still believed tomorrow could be kind. Kola grew with a quiet intensity. He was the type of boy who watched everything. He watched the way landlords smiled when you had money and frowned when you didn't. He watched the way teachers treated children with big surnames differently. He watched the way people said God will do it, but still locked their doors. And he watched his mother. How she never stole, never cheated, never cursed life, even when life didn't seem to deserve her goodness. One day after school, Kola found his mother staring at a letter. "What is it?" he asked. Amina smiled weakly. "It's nothing." But Kola had learned that nothing often meant pain I'm trying not to share. He looked closer. It was a letter from a hospital. Payment reminders. The words were polite, but the numbers were not. Amina folded it quickly and stood. Go and wash up. Kola didn't move. He said quietly. Is it because of me? Amina's face softened. No. It's because life is expensive. Kola's throat tightened. Then I'll make life cheaper. Amina laughed. Not because it was funny, but because children sometimes sound like miracles. Listen to me, she said, holding his face. You will make life better, not cheaper. Better means you will learn. You will be kind. You will be wise. Kola nodded. But deep inside him, the promise at the gate was still alive, growing roots. 13. Kola started working after school. He carried groceries for customers at a small market. He cleaned the shop floors. He did homework at night, eyes heavy, head stubborn. At 15, he discovered a broken computer discarded behind a cyber cafe. He asked the owner for it. Why? The man laughed. That thing is dead. Kola shrugged. Maybe it's only sleeping. He took it home piece by piece like a puzzle. Amina watched him work, sweat on his brow, tongue pressed between his teeth in focus. She didn't understand computers, but she understood determination. When Kola finally got the computer running, screen flickering like a weak candle, Amina clapped as if he had built a house. My son, she said proudly, you have hands that can bring dead things back. Kola didn't know then how true those words would become. He learned from free tutorials. He practiced coding. He fixed phones for neighbors. He started earning small money, not enough to change the world but enough to change their home. When Kola finished secondary school with excellent results, the community celebrated him like he was their own child. But universities were expensive. Scholarships were rare. Amina sold her best sewing machine, her pride, to pay application fees. Kola protested. Amina smiled. That machine fed us. Now it will plant your future. Kola received an admission letter from a respected university. He also received something else. A scholarship offer from a foundation supported by business leaders. The letter said, "We believe in potential." Kola stared at the paper for a long time. Then he whispered, "Someone believes." Amina watched him, tears glittering, and said, "People will always believe when you give them a reason." Kola studied business and technology. He didn't just want money, he wanted systems. He wanted to understand how power worked. During internships, he learned how companies made decisions, and how those decisions shaped lives outside the gate. He learned about profit. He learned about policies. He learned about the quiet cruelty of "we regret to inform you." And he learned something that surprised even him. Not everyone in suits was wicked. Some were simply afraid. Afraid of losing status. Afraid of being replaced. Afraid of seeing themselves in the eyes of the poor. Kola made friends with professors, mentors, and even a retired executive who had once worked at Bamideel Group. One day the old man asked him, "Why are you so determined to win?" Kola paused. He could have said, "For my mother." He could have said, "For myself." But what came out was something older. "There was a gate," he said softly. And people laughed. The old man studied him carefully. Then he said, "Win, my boy. But win with your soul intact." Kola nodded. He didn't know yet how hard that would be. By 28, Kola was no longer a boy in torn slippers. He wore clean shirts. He spoke calmly. He carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had worked too hard to be noisy. He launched a startup that helped companies manage logistics and reduce waste. It grew faster than he expected. Investors noticed. Newspapers started calling him the young genius of Econ City. Kola didn't enjoy attention. He enjoyed results. He hired people who reminded him of his mother. Tired but honest, overlooked but brilliant. He set policies that seemed too soft for business. A fair recruitment system. Paid internships for low-income students. A support fund for employees in emergencies. Some executives laughed. Kola didn't argue. He kept building. Then one morning his mentor, the retired executive, called him with a voice that sounded like the past knocking politely. "Kola," the man said, "Bomadil Group is in trouble." Kola's chest went still. "The same Bomadil Group?" he asked, though he already knew. "Yes," the mentor said. "They expanded too fast. Bad decisions. Bad leadership. They need a new direction." Kola's fingers tightened around his phone. "And why are you telling me?" There was a pause. Then the mentor said, "Because the board is looking for a new CEO. Someone outside their old circle. Someone who understands efficiency and people." Kola's mouth went dry. He remembered the gate. He remembered his mother's folder. He remembered laughter. "They will never pick me," he said. The mentor chuckled. "They won't pick the boy at the gate. But they might pick the man who can save them. And Kola, you can save them." Kola sat down slowly. "Why would I save them?" he whispered. "Because," the mentor said, voice gentle, "saving them doesn't mean excusing them. It means rewriting the story." For 2 days, Kola didn't answer. Amina noticed his silence. "Mama," he finally said one evening, "do you remember Bomadil Group?" Amina's needle paused in mid-air. Her face hardened in a way Kola hadn't seen in years. "Yes," she said. "Why?" Kola swallowed. "They want a new CEO." Amina stared. Then she laughed once, short and incredulous. "CEO? That company. What does it have to do with you?" Kola's voice lowered. "They are considering me." Amina's eyes widened. "You?" Kola nodded. Amina's hands trembled. The needle slipped from her fingers and fell onto the floor with a small metallic sound, like destiny dropping a coin. She sat down slowly. For a long time she said nothing. Then she whispered, "God." Kola knelt beside her chair. "Mama," he said carefully, "I'm not going there to be cruel." Amina looked at him with wet eyes. "I know," she said, "because I raised you." Kola's throat tightened. "But," Amina continued, "I am not going to lie. That day, it hurt me. It lived in my chest for years. When you slept, I cried. When you smiled, I pretended I was fine. When you promised you would make it better, I held on to that promise." Kola blinked hard. Amina held his face gently, the way she used to when he was small. "If you go," she said, "go as the man you became, not the wound you survived." Kola nodded. The interview process was intense. In the final meeting, the board members sat around a long table like kings deciding the fate of a kingdom. Some were old. Some were young. All were cautious. One asked, "Mr. Sonni, why do you want to lead Bomadil Group?" Kola could have given the usual answer. Growth, innovation, shareholder value. But something in him refused to lie in that room. So he said the truth carefully. "I want to lead," he said, "because I believe a company can make profit without breaking people. I believe systems can be efficient without being cruel. And I believe the gate should not be a place where hope is mocked." The room went silent. One board member frowned. "What do you mean by that?" Kola held the man's gaze. "I mean," he said calmly, "a company is judged not only by its building, but by how it treats those outside its doors." The board members exchanged looks. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked impressed. In that moment, Kola understood something. Truth can be frightening in a room built on pride. 2 weeks later, the announcement came. Kola Sonni appointed CEO of Bomadil Group. The morning of his first day, Kola arrived in a black car that glided like a whisper. He stepped out. He looked at the gates. The gates that had swallowed hope. Now they opened for him. The guards stood straighter. One of them stared at Kola's face, confused, then pale. Kola walked slowly, deliberately, toward them. The tall guard from years ago was older now, but his body still carried the same arrogance. His eyes widened as recognition struck him. "Kola!" the guard breathed. Kola stopped. He looked at the man, not with anger, not with joy, but calm. "Good morning," Kola said politely. The guard's mouth opened and closed like a fish. I didn't know. Kola nodded once. Of course you didn't, he said gently. Most people don't know the weight of their words until time returns with a mirror. Then Kola walked inside. Every step echoed. Not with revenge. With arrival. The boardroom was full. Executives sat with forced smiles and nervous hands. Assistants moved quietly. The air smelled like expensive perfume and hidden fear. Kola entered. The room rose automatically. Congratulations, sir, someone said too quickly. Welcome, said another too loudly. Kola sat at the head of the table, placed his folder down, and looked at each face like he was reading a story written in their eyes. He began softly. I'm not here to punish anyone. Several people exhaled, relieved. Kola continued. I'm here to correct what was broken. Relief turned into uncertainty. He opened his folder and displayed a chart. Bamadil Group is losing money, he said. But the deeper loss is trust. Staff turnover is high. Customer loyalty is dropping. Your internal culture is afraid. A senior executive cleared his throat. Sir, with respect, our culture is disciplined. Kola looked at him. Discipline is not fear. Silence. Kola stood, walked to the window, and looked down at the street below, the same street where Amina once stood with a folder. Then he turned back. I'm introducing 3 changes effective immediately, he said. He raised one finger. First, recruitment will be transparent. No more gatekeeping. No more humiliation. Applications will be tracked. Interviews will be recorded for fairness. Some faces tightened. Kola raised a second finger. Second, every employee, from security to directors, will undergo training on dignity, communication, and ethical conduct. Anyone who humiliates others will face consequences. The room shifted. People adjusted collars, cleared throats. Kola raised a third finger. Third, we will create a community program, skills training and paid internships, focused on people who are often ignored. Orphans, widows, and low-income students. A board member frowned. Is that not too emotional for business? Kola smiled slightly. Business is emotional, he said. You just call it customer satisfaction when it benefits you. Few people chuckled nervously. Kola leaned forward. Let me be clear, he said. I want profit. I want growth. I want excellence. But I also want a company that can look at its gate without shame. After the meeting, Kola asked for the security department file. He read names. He found the tall guard's name, Segan Dada. Kola called him into his office. Segan entered trembling. He couldn't hide it. Sit, Kola said. Segan didn't sit. He stood like someone waiting for a verdict. I'm sorry, Segan blurted. That day, years ago, I behaved badly. Please. Kola held up a hand. I didn't call you here to embarrass you. Segan blinked. Kola opened a drawer and placed a small envelope on the table. This is for your daughter's school fees, Kola said quietly. Segan stared. Sir, how do you know? I know, Kola said. Because once, I was the child outside the gate. And someone's words can become a child's hunger. Segan's eyes filled. Kola continued, voice calm. You will keep your job, he said. But you will also be the first security officer to attend our dignity training. And you will lead by example. Segan's shoulders shook. Yes, sir, he whispered. That day, Segan left the office and wept in the corridor. Not from fear, but from a heavy realization. The boy he mocked had returned with power. And kindness. And that kindness was more painful than any shouting could have been. Because it left no room to blame anyone else. Weeks passed. Bamadil Group began to change. Not quickly. Not magically. Change is stubborn. It resists. Argues. It hides behind old habits and old pride. But Kola was patient. He wasn't building a reputation. He was building a legacy. He walked through every department himself. Sometimes quietly, sometimes with questions that made people uncomfortable. He listened to cleaners who had never been asked for their opinions. He greeted interns by name. He ate in the general cafeteria on purpose, ignoring the private executive lounge the former CEO used like a kingdom. At first, workers whispered whenever he passed, "Be careful, CEO is around. He's watching. Maybe he will start firing people soon." But over time the fear changed shape. It began to look less like, "What will he do to us?" and more like, "We must do better." Because Kola didn't threaten. He didn't shout. He didn't insult. He simply brought excellence and fairness into rooms that had never known them. And that kind of leadership is frightening to people who used to hide behind cruelty. A quiet invitation. One afternoon, Kola sat in his office holding a small photograph. It was old. The edges were worn. The picture showed a younger Amina, smiling softly, her arms wrapped around a little Kola who looked too thin for his age. Kola stared at it for a long time. Then he reached for his phone and called the only person he still feared disappointing. "Mama." Amina answered on the second ring. "My son. Are you okay?" Kola smiled. He always smiled when she said "my son" like that, like she was still protecting him from the world. "I'm fine," he said. "I want you to come to the headquarters tomorrow." Silence. Amina's voice was careful. "Why?" Kola took a slow breath. "Because," he said softly, "I want the building to meet you again properly." Amina's breath caught. She didn't respond for a moment. Then she said, voice tight as if it was wrapped in old pain, "I don't want to step there." Kola didn't push. He didn't argue. He simply said gently, "Mama, understand. But I also believe healing sometimes needs us to return, not to suffer again, but to take back what was stolen." Amina whispered, "That place took my pride from me." Kola's voice softened. "Then come and collect it." A mother preparing like it was war. That night, Amina couldn't sleep. She lay on her mat, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft sounds of the neighborhood. Dogs barking in the distance. A generator humming somewhere far away. The quiet breathing of a world that didn't know it had wounded her. Her mind returned to that day. The heat. The gate. Laughter. The way her hands trembled around the folder. She remembered walking home, trying to hold herself together, trying not to let her child see her break. He was just a boy. And he promised me the impossible. Amina sat up in the dark and whispered, "God, he actually did it." In the morning, she opened her small wardrobe. She didn't have many clothes. But she had one dress she had sewn for herself years ago, a simple but elegant fabric that had been waiting for a day like this. Her hands trembled as she ironed it. Not because of excitement, but because memory can make the body shake, even when the heart is ready. When she finished, she looked into a small mirror. Her eyes stared back at her. Older, wiser, stronger. Amina placed her hand on her chest and whispered, "I am not going there as a beggar. I am going there as a mother of a king." Then she picked up her handbag and stepped outside. The gate opened differently. When Amina arrived at Bamadil Group headquarters, the building still looked the same. Cold. Powerful. But something was different. The gate, once her enemy, opened politely. The guards greeted her respectfully, as if the air itself had learned manners. "Good afternoon, Ma," one said. Amina's eyes darted around like she was stepping into a dream she didn't trust. She walked slowly, carefully, like a person entering water that had once drowned them. Then she saw her son. Kola stood at the entrance, waiting. Not in a rush. Not distracted. Just waiting like her time mattered. He walked toward her and held her hands gently. "Mama," he said, smiling. Amina's throat tightened. She touched his face quickly, almost like she wanted to confirm he was real. "My son," she whispered. "Look at you." Kola smiled softly. "Look at you. You survived." Amina held back tears. They began to walk through the lobby together. People turned to look. Some employees smiled genuinely. Some smiled nervously. A few looked confused, like they were trying to place her face inside their memories. Amina held her head high, but Kola felt her grip tighten as they approached a particular area. The gates. That exact place. The memory location. Amina stopped walking. Her body froze before her mind even spoke. Kola didn't rush her. He stood beside her and waited, giving her the dignity of time. Then he asked softly, "Mama, do you remember where you stood?" Amina nodded, eyes shining with painful clarity. "I remember," she whispered. "I remember the heat. I remember the laughter. I remember how small I felt." Kola swallowed. "I remember too," he said. "But today, I want you to stand here again." Amina turned sharply. "Why?" Kola's voice was calm but deep. "Because," he said, "the story doesn't end with them humiliating you. The story ends with you standing here with your head high." Amina's lips trembled. Then she nodded slowly. "Okay," she whispered. The announcement that stopped time. Kola led her gently to the spot inside the gate, where the polished floor met sunlight. He looked at her and said one word. "Stand." Amina stood. And for a moment she felt something powerful. Not anger. Not revenge. But justice. She stood where she had once been chased away. Only this time nobody could send her away. Kola stepped back and looked at her the way a son looks at a mother who carried the world with tired hands. Then he raised his voice, loud enough for people to hear. "Ladies and gentlemen." The lobby quieted. Faces turned. Movements paused. Phones stopped scrolling. Kola continued. "This is my mother." Amina's eyes widened. Kola spoke again, with pride that sounded like a crown being placed gently on her head. "The woman who came here once with hope, and was turned away." Murmurs rose like wind. Kola didn't stop. "The woman who did not become bitter. The woman who worked with dignity when life was unfair." Amina's lips trembled. Kola's voice became softer, more emotional, like he was speaking to the boy he used to be. "If I am CEO today," he said, "it is because she refused to let the world teach me cruelty." Amina covered her mouth, tears spilling like they had been waiting for years. Kola took her hand and raised it slightly, like a victory that belonged to her. "Today," he said, "this building greets you properly." For a heartbeat the world was silent. Then someone started clapping. One clap. Two claps. Then the entire lobby joined like a wave. At first the clapping was hesitant. Then it grew stronger. Louder. Longer. Some people smiled with pride. Some clapped with shame. Some clapped with tears in their eyes because they understood something bigger than business. Amina cried openly now. Not from pain but from release. The guard who couldn't stand his shame. At the corner of the lobby stood Segan, the old guard. The same man whose mouth had once laughed at her suffering. Now his eyes were red. He watched Amina standing there like a queen, and his knees felt weak. He wanted to disappear. But he couldn't. Because when a person changes, shame becomes heavier than pride. Segan slowly stepped forward. People noticed. They made space. Segan reached Amina, his voice shaking. "Madam," he began. Amina turned and looked at him. The old pain rose like a ghost. But Kola was beside her, steady. Segan swallowed hard. "I am sorry," he said, voice breaking. "That day, I mocked you. I was proud. I was wrong." Amina's tears paused. She stared at him for a long moment, as if she was seeing him properly for the first time. Then she spoke quietly. "You didn't just mock me," she said. "You mocked my child's future." Segan's face crumpled. "I know," he whispered. "And I've carried it for years. I didn't know the boy would become this." Kola spoke calmly. "That's the problem, Segan." Segan looked up. Kola continued, voice firm but controlled. "People are kind only when they think you are important. But dignity is not supposed to be given by position." Segan nodded repeatedly like a man drinking truth. "Yes, sir," he whispered. "Yes." Then Amina surprised everyone. She stepped forward and placed a hand gently on Segan's shoulder. "Stand up straight," she said. Segan blinked. Amina continued, voice trembling but strong. "I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I refuse to carry yesterday into tomorrow." Segan broke down, covering his face. And in that moment, the building learned something. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is the strongest type of victory. A mother's words that shattered the room. Kola turned to his mother. "Mama, is your heart lighter now?" Amina nodded, tears still falling. "Yes," she said, voice shaking. "Yes, my son. It's lighter." Then she looked around the lobby. The staff, the suits, the glass walls. And she spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Listen to me." The room quieted again. Amina's voice was gentle, but it carried power. "I came here once with my son, and you made me feel like my life was nothing." Some people lowered their heads. Amina continued. "But God did not allow my story to end at the gate." She wiped her tears and said something that made even Kola's chest tighten. "Never laugh at someone who is struggling. Today's poor person can become tomorrow's leader. And today's small boy can become the one signing your salary." The room stayed silent, not because they were forced to be quiet, but because the truth had entered them. The final envelope. Later that evening, when the building became quieter and the sky outside turned deep blue, Kola returned to his office. He removed his jacket and loosened his tie. For a moment, he was no longer CEO. He was just a son who had finally completed a promise. That's when he saw an envelope on his desk. It was from the board. Inside was a note. "We underestimated you. Thank you for saving us." Kola stared at the words for a long time. He didn't smile. He didn't feel proud. He felt responsible. Then he took a pen and wrote a reply. One sentence. "Don't thank me. Change with me." He sealed it, placed it back on the desk, and leaned into his chair. He looked out of his office window. Down below, people walked. Cars moved. Life continued. And somewhere in the city, a poor child was staring at a gate, believing their life might change. Kola whispered to himself, "Let the gate be kinder." Because in Kola's mind, the real victory wasn't becoming CEO. The real victory was becoming a CEO who didn't need to be cruel to feel powerful. And for the first time, the past didn't feel like a wound. It felt like a lesson that finally found peace. If you watched this story to this end, please tell us where you're watching from in the comment below. Like this video and subscribe to this channel so you won't miss our next interesting story.